welcome to Jessie Bear Book Club. Today we are going to be reviewing A Dangerous Inheritance by Allison Weir. This review is going to be broken into two parts as it covers the story of Katherine Grey and Catherine Plantagenet, the illegitimate daughter of Richard III. The first part of this review is about Katherine Grey. I first read this book about 8 years ago and I enjoyed it. I have read it once more since, and this is going to be my third read-through. Every time I read this book, I enjoy it, but I feel more focus should have been given to Katherine Grey, as her story is simply too compelling for such a short narrative. I have read Sisters of Treason, a story about Katherine Grey and Mary Grey by Elizabeth Fremantle, which has quite a different take on Katherine Grey. Both these books are good and encompass the same life, but give the girl a different personality. The book starts with Katherine Grey, aged 12, being betrothed to the Earl of Pembroke's son. At the same time, her sister Jane is betrothed to Guilford Dudley. Katherine loves her sister Jane and Mary, but views herself as less intelligent than Jane, but prettier, and therefore is the favourite daughter. She is completely besotted with her 16-year-old groom-to-be Henry Herbert. Though she is young, Catherine is aware of some of the political turmoil surrounding her marriage, but thinks it can't be that bad. And even though she knows the king is dying, she cannot see herself as an heir, even though she knows she is in the line of succession. When Catherine's sister Jane is crowned queen, Catherine is envious, but doesn't really see any danger in it until her father-in-law says that her and Henry still can't have sex, and she sees that as wrong. She should be able to enjoy her husband. She is so naive, but would you be at 13? So completely politically naive and unaware of goings-on, especially when your family is so close to the crown. I found it hard to believe. Did she have blinkers on? Is she actually dumb? Or is this bad writing? I choose to think that Catherine is just unaware and perhaps just a little bit dim. When the tide turns after only 9 days and Jane is deposed, Catherine is devastated and the political ramifications sink in quickly, as well as personal sisterly fear. Catherine's father-in-law kicks her out of the house and she is forced to go downriver by barge and is left screaming at the gates of her mother's house, being asked to be let in. For a sheltered 13-year-old girl from the higher echelons, this must have been incredibly scary. And this is the part in the book where I really start liking Catherine. Before this, she is just a spoiled child, set up to be sympathetic, but when she is separated from her husband and goes through longing love and is shoved quietly to the back burner because her family are now traitors who are having to change faith, become a Catholic, and her cousin, the Lady Elizabeth's hostility towards her, you can really see that this 13-year-old girl is up against it in the Tudor world. Catherine makes her own decisions about faith and religion and wanting to be in the line of succession. I like her pragmatic view of religion. However, I don't think the Jane Seymour-Catherine friendship gets enough page time in this book. They probably were a lot closer than it is portrayed here. I think you get a better view of their friendship in Sisters of Treason. I understand why Edward Seymour and Katherine Grey fell in love. Both of them have suffered great family tragedies in their lives. Both their fathers were executed for treason, and their mothers are duchesses who are formidable women in their own rights. They have both been related to the crown and have much in common. They are of a similar age, and it is obvious and inevitable they would fall in love. I get Robert Dudley and Elizabeth I vibes. They too had a lot in common. However, when Mary I dies, I think it is unrealistic Catherine would have just presumed she was the rightful heir. Even though she is a Catholic now, the laws have never been changed, so why would she now be queen, especially when nobody comes to get her? I don't think this really would have happened. And again, Allison Weir is showing Catherine to be a little dim here, and I don't care for it. We know Catherine did collude with the Spanish ambassador, and that she remained Catholic during Elizabeth's reign to maintain Spanish support. I think it would have been more sensible for Catherine to convert back to the Protestant religion, but I understand why she had confirmation bias and retained her Catholic faith. Elizabeth, of course, looks down on her for doing this and excludes her from the inner court, not making her a lady of the bedchamber. I think Catherine resents Elizabeth, obviously, for this, and after such kind treatment by Mary, it must have been like going from heaven into hell when Elizabeth took the throne. I think Frances Brandon was right when she said that Elizabeth is jealous of Catherine because she is younger and more beautiful. I think simple female jealousy is overlooked a lot in some situations, but it can be a prevailing factor of dislike. Catherine takes her mother's illness and her death very badly and is hard hit, not just emotionally, but she watches any hope of marrying Edward Seymour disappear along with the end of the credit her family had with Elizabeth I. And when I say credit, I mean family credit, not actual money. The scene where Catherine watches her stepfather burn her mother's letter to the Queen, asking for permission for her to marry Edward Seymour, is a sad scene, but it probably never happened. Catherine then schemes with Jane Seymour to marry Edward, her brother, and I like the idea of the fait accompli, but it doesn't really work out so well in practice for poor Catherine. I was surprised Allison Weir didn't mention Katherine Grey's grandmother, Princess Mary's fait accompli with Charles Brandon, but maybe they didn't have room, maybe it was cut, but it should have been mentioned. I think Catherine is just too horny to think about any ramifications for her actions, and even though there is a power move here by Edward Seymour, I do think he loves Catherine. After their wedding, when Edward is sent to France and leaves poor Catherine not sure if she is pregnant, I go back and forward a bit about his caring, but you've got to remember it's a different time, there's no telephones, no way to really keep in contact, and he didn't know if she was pregnant when she left. The scene where he sends back bracelets for all the ladies at court and poor Catherine is heartbroken really made me feel for her. I do think there was an element of ambition in Edward Seymour's marriage, but it's not massive. He did love her, I think. Though he definitely should have taken more of a care when it came to getting her pregnant. That shouldn't have happened. He should have seen that was stupid. But again, it's a different time. Catherine experiences and sees ghosts in the tower. She hears creepy voices, help me, save us, and sees full body apparitions. And it's a little bit odd. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but I don't think the ghosts in this book were written overly well. I don't like that Katherine Grey sees ghosts of Catherine Plantagenet, and the fact that Catherine Plantagenet sees foreshadowed images of Catherine Grey. Is it stone tape theory? I don't know, but I think this book would be just as good without the girls seeing ghosts of each other. And I do like the ghosts of the princes in the tower, but the narrative doesn't really make sense for me. Writing about ghosts and magic is a very difficult thing to do well. I understand this, and I think maybe it should have just been left out. After Catherine has her second son, the book ends abruptly. Well, Katherine Grey's story ends abruptly. Could have been played out a little bit longer, having her moved. I understand her life wasn't very interesting after she became a prisoner, but even so, I don't like that whap bam cutoff point. I give this book 6 out of 10. Well, this part of the story, 6 out of 10. Come back next week when we're going to be talking about Catherine Plantagenet. Until then, don't marry Edward Seymour and end up in the tower. Bye!